I'm in the frame of mind where I feel like I can do this vlog, so I'm just gonna jump right into it. Right, let's talk about pregnancy loss. Unfortunately, it's very common, and I don't really talk about this much, so we'll just see how it goes. So in 2019, I was pregnant. Being my first pregnancy, I thought, you know, it's okay, these things are, you know, it'll be fine. And it wasn't until I was about 23 weeks pregnant that I started getting aches and pains. And I remember on my day off, I was sitting watching TV, and I kept having this really bad pain, and it was getting worse and worse. And so I said to my partner, I'm just going to have a bath. And so I went upstairs. While the bath was running, I went to the loo, and then my waters broke. Obviously it was my first pregnancy, but I knew it was my waters breaking. And I didn't know what to do. And obviously my partner rang for an ambulance that came, and I had started to bleed. So we were rushed to East Surrey Hospital, where we stayed overnight, and I was dilating, and then I had closed up again, and one of the nurses said they wouldn't have believed it unless they actually saw it, because it was quite an unusual thing to see. But then we got transferred to this awful hospital, avoid like the plague, St Peter's Hospital in Chertsey. They were an absolutely appalling hospital. I believe they still are one. Basically, so my waters had broken, obviously, and they, from what I can remember, they left us. Basically, they monitored me for about like 3 days, not really doing anything. And then when I was 23 weeks and 3 days pregnant, at 8 o'clock, I had started to go into actual labour. And so we were put in a room, and with a stank of urine, I remember that. And then I just remember the sun was setting, and put my headphones in just to get ready for everything that was about to happen. And I put on the Prince of Egypt music, on the Burning Bush music. Is a beautiful piece of music, and obviously faith is very important to me, so I was just saying everything's gonna be okay. And then the labour pain started. It literally felt like being burned alive. So basically the nurse, she wasn't really with me at all in the room. She just told me to have some gas and air whenever I felt pain, and obviously I didn't know having too much gas and air would make you sick. So I had that, and then I had Pethidine. Now Pethidine is a unusual medication because it can make people act differently, and I was one of those people that acted strangely on it. Apparently so much so that I pulled out my own cannula. Oh my god, not catheter, no. Cannula. I pulled out my cannula from my wrist, and I was puking. I was throwing up during labour, contractions. It was the most excruciating pain ever. I was screaming. And the nurse didn't really do much. She just came in and out. And then, I remember I never felt so physically knackered in all my life. And then I had to carry on. And then apparently 3 people had gone into labour all at once. what I didn't know at the time when I was in labour was I had contracted, or the baby had, Louis had contracted sepsis because my waters had broken so early. Like 5 days. They left me 5 days. They left him for 5 days. And that was probably contributing to the feeling of it literally felt like being burned alive. And basically at midnight, the doctor decided to make an appearance. And he came in with a machine to, to check on the baby. While I was in labour, I had been in labour since 8 o'clock that evening, and basically he came in and we saw the heart rate we saw the heart rate drop, gone, and my son had died and I was still expected to carry on the labour. So from 8 o'clock till 7:30 a.m. the next morning, where I delivered him, he was stillborn. Yeah. And then we went home and they had overdrugged me so much in the hospital that I wasn't able to see straight for 2 days. And I have never ever felt angry at God in all of my life. Even when my stepdad died, I didn't feel angry. But this time, I felt angry. I felt angry at God, and I didn't want to feel like that. It was obviously a very surreal time. The things that helped me were Facebook groups, support groups really helped me. So I recommend them, and also SANS for Charity really helped me. And they didn't. Apparently, I had an infection which made my waters break early, and obviously my son had died due to sepsis at 23 weeks 3 days, and obviously we had a funeral for him, and honestly seeing a baby coffin will haunt me forever. But we had a funeral, and I read at his funeral, which was good. And then the year after, I fell pregnant again. And then obviously I was quite anxious, and I went for a routine scan, and I went for a routine scan at 11 weeks, and I actually demanded to be scanned. I was like, can you just check everything's okay? And then unfortunately, it was that typical cliche moment of when the woman, feels around for a heartbeat, and then they say there's no heartbeat. I'm sorry. And the reason for that was probably it was maybe a bit too soon to try. But then in 2021, blessed with my oldest son, who is now 4.5, and then the year after having my son, I was pregnant again, and this time felt different. I was again stressful situations in my life, and then ironically I had and this is the day I knew God was with me. God had my back. God had never left me during those trials and tribulations. He was literally there, and I'll tell you this story, and you'll know, why I knew that he was there. So, I had started bleeding at 9 weeks and 3 days, and I had a routine appointment that day.
and I was worried. I was like, oh God, and obviously, and then they redirected me to Crawley Hospital, so I went all the way in taxi, Crawley Hospital. Crawley Hospital actually took me into an ultrasound scanning room, told me they couldn't scan me, and then they said, oh, you're going to have to go to East Surrey Hospital. And at this stage, I was like, something's really, really wrong. I need to get there. So I went on a bus all the way into Crawley Town to get on this bus that would go to East Surrey Hospital. Literally, just as I was pulling up, the bus was pulling up that I was on, the bus to East Surrey Hospital was literally just about to leave. I ran to that bus and I got on it, and I knew for a fact God had delayed that bus so that I could get on that, because during that trip to East Surrey Hospital, the pain got worse. And then when I went to East Surrey Hospital, obviously A&E was packed, and I checked in, I waited, I went to see the nurse, and they said, can I be scanned? I feel like something's wrong. And it was the time of COVID, so obviously everyone had masks on. And I was sitting down again. I was on my own because, you know, my partner was looking after our son at home. And I thought it'll be fine, you know, I'm just going to have a checkup. And then when I was waiting there, I suddenly felt a gush, and I had started hemorrhaging. And literally a few minutes after, my name was called, and luckily that day I was wearing my scarf, and I just remember people looking, you know, at me. I could just feel all eyes on me, and I explained to the doctor, I don't know if I can stand up because I'm literally currently, I just started having a miscarriage, so I don't know how much I am bleeding. And luckily I wrapped the scarf around my waist, and yeah, I had bloods done, and it got to the point where even if I just stood up, I was bleeding so much. I literally could not move. I was just bleeding a lot. I couldn't walk. It was embarrassing. I was just bleeding, and that was pretty bad. And the pain was horrible, and obviously they gave me some pills to help speed along the process of the miscarriage, but it didn't really work straight away. It just left me in agonizing pain, and so I spent 2 days in hospital, and I discharged myself because I wanted to be with my family. And, you know, about a week after that, I passed the baby, and, you know, I think as you can hear, I now have 3 children under the age of 5. My oldest is 4.5, daughter is 2.5, and my youngest is 1.5. So praise be to God, you know. They also said I had polycystic ovaries, and apparently polycystic ovaries can increase the chances of having a miscarriage. But anyway, yeah, that's my story. I have not, you know, talked about it for years, but I'm glad that I got through it. I'm really hoping my story can bring hope and courage, and mainly hope to people that have gone through, you know, a miscarriage, stillborn. Honestly, the Facebook support groups for mums of angels is really, really good. That really, really helped me. So I advise, yeah, you go on that. Also, if
you know, if you've had loss, feel free to reach out. And thank you very much for listening to me. And yeah, I'm hoping that someone can take comfort in this video. And you're stronger than you think, so take care.